అమెరికా ఉత్తర కొరియాల మధ్య చారిత్రక ఘట్టం ఆవిష్కృతమైంది. ఇరు దేశ అధ్యక్షుల మధ్య కీలక సమావేశం జరిగింది. అత్యంత అరుదైన ఈ భేటీకి సింగపూర్లోని కేపెల్లా హోటల్ వేదికగా మారింది. అమెరికా అధ్యక్షుడు డొనాల్డ్ ట్రంప్, ఉత్తర కొరియా అధ్యక్షుడు కిమ్ దాదాపు 38 నిమిషాల పాటు ముఖాముఖి సమావేశమయ్యారు. అనంతరం తమ దౌత్యాధికారులతో కలిసి ద్వైపాక్షిక చర్చలు జరిపారు. కొరియా ద్వీపకల్పంలో అణు నిరాయుధీకరణ, శాంతి స్థాపనే ప్రధాన ఎజెండాగా ఈ సమావేశం జరిగింది. ఈ సమావేశంలో చాలా కీలక అంశాలు ప్రస్తావనకు వచ్చినట్లుగా సమాచారం. కొరియా ద్వీపకల్పంలో అణు నిరాయుధీకరణకు అంగీకరిస్తే ఉత్తర కొరియా భద్రతకు హామీ ఇస్తామని అమెరికా తెలిపింది. రైట్, ఈ భేటీ తర్వాత అమెరికా అధ్యక్షుడు ట్రంప్ మీడియాతో మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. ఇప్పుడు లైవ్లో చూద్దాం.
Yes,
Mr.
please.
President, you also talk about establishing diplomatic relations, exchanging ambassadors. How long before that happens?
Good question. Hopefully soon, but we'll have to get things moving first. A little bit early for that. We have to get things moving. Yes, go ahead. Hi.
Can you clarify, when you said you're stopping war games, so you are stopping the military exercises with South Korea?
Yeah, we've done exercises for a long period of time working with South Korea, and we call them war games, and I call them war games, and they're tremendously expensive. The amount of money that we spend on that is incredible, and South Korea contributes, but not 100%, which is certainly a subject that we have to talk to them about also. And that has to do with the military expense and also the trade. So we're doing that. We actually have a new deal with South Korea in terms of the trade deal. But we have to talk to them. We have to talk to many countries about treating us fairly. But the war games are very expensive. We pay for a big majority of them. We fly in bombers from Guam. I said it when I first started. I said, where do the bombers come from? Guam, nearby. I said, oh, great, nearby. Where's nearby? 6.5 hours. 6.5 hours, that's a long time for these big, massive planes to be flying to South Korea to practice and then drop bombs all over the place and then go back to Guam. I know a lot about airplanes. It's very expensive. And I didn't like it. And what I did say is, and I think it's very provocative, I have to tell you, Jennifer, it's a very provocative situation when I see that, and you have a country right next door. So under the circumstances that we're negotiating a very comprehensive, complete deal, I think it's inappropriate to be having war games. So number one, we save money a lot. And number two, it really is something that I think they very much appreciated.
Does North Korea give you something in return, though?
Well, we've gotten, I've heard that. I mean, some of the people that, I don't know, maybe they really mean it. I don't always want to go against the press because I just don't, especially not today. This is too important. But I noticed that some of the people were saying that the president has agreed to meet. He has given up so much. I gave up nothing. I'm here. I haven't slept in 25 hours, but I thought it was appropriate to do because we've been negotiating for literally round the clock with them and with us and with John and with Mike and a whole team of very talented people. But we haven't given up anything other than, you're right, I agreed to meet. And I think the meeting was every bit as good for the United States as it was for North Korea. But I just wrote down some of the things we got. And they got a meeting. But only a person that dislikes Donald Trump would say that I've agreed to make a big commitment. Sure, I've agreed to take a period of time and come here and meet, and that's good. But I think it's great for us and as a country, and I think it's good for them. But what did they do to justify this meeting? Secured commitment for complete denuclearization. That's the big thing. They secured the release of 3 American hostages. They already gave them to us 2 months ago. These people are now living happily back in their homes with their families. And it was pretty rough for them, to put it mildly. Secure the commitment to recover the remains, including, these are of fallen heroes. And they're giving a commitment. They're starting it immediately to recover the remains. And I just went through how many people asked me about it. I was amazed, actually. So many people would ask me, is it possible? Is it possible? At that time, we had no relationship to Chairman Kim or to anybody else in North Korea. You know, it was a very closed society. So we're getting the remains back. Secured the halt of all missile and nuclear tests. For how long has it been? 7 months? You haven't had a missile go up. For 7 months, you haven't had a nuclear test. You haven't had a nuclear explosion. I remember a nuclear event took place, 8.8 on the Richter scale. And they announced, I heard it on the radio, they announced that a massive, earthquake took place somewhere in Asia. And then they said it was in North Korea, and then they found out it was a nuclear test. I said, I never heard of a Richter scale in the high 8s. And if you look, there has been no missile launches. They've blown up their missile area. That's going to take place. That has not been written into the contract. We're going to give you the exact details on that. But they secured a halt of all missiles and of all nuclear tests. They secured the closure of their single primary nuclear test site, all three of them. They're in an area that's common around each other. They secured the closure. They secured the commitment to destroy the missile engine testing site. That was not in your agreement. I got that after we signed the agreement. I said, do me a favor. You've got this missile engine testing site. We know where it is. Because of the heat, it's incredible the equipment we have, to be honest with you. I said, can you close it up? You're going to close it up. We maintain the ability to continue to apply sanctions. So we're applying sanctions. Now, I had 300 sanctions that I was getting ready to put on last week, and I said, I can't really put on sanctions when I'm meeting with. I thought it would be very disrespectful. 300 very big ones, powerful ones. And I said it would be disrespectful. So, Jennifer, when you look at all of those things that we got, and when we got our hostages back, I didn't pay $1.8 billion in cash, like the hostages that came back from Iran, which was a disgraceful situation, what took place. So we've gotten a lot. So when I hear somebody in the media say that President Trump has agreed to meet, it's not a big deal to meet. I think we should meet on a lot of different topics, not just this one. And I really believe a lot of great things can happen. Yes, go ahead, please.
Sir, you just listed off a lot of things that you say you got in this meeting. It wasn't too long ago, though, that you said you defined success of this meeting by North Korea giving up its nuclear weapons.
Well, that's what they're doing.
Well, can you talk about how
sure,
you... Sure,
that's what they're doing.
Well,
I don't think
Kim Jong Un for a complete, verifiable, irreversible
I did honestly.
And can you say why you didn't secure those details in this agreement?
Because there's no time. I'm here one day. We're together for many hours intensively, but the process is now going to take place. And I would be surprised, Mike, if they haven't even started already. They have started. They blew up their sites. They blew up their testing site. So, but I will say, he knew prior to coming. This wasn't like a surprise. It wasn't like we'd never discussed it. We discussed it. Mike discussed it very strongly with his counterpart in North Korea. They knew that this was, let's say they didn't agree to that, I couldn't sign any agreement. There was no agreement that could have been signed. So they understood that. And it wasn't a big point today because really this had been taken care of more than any other thing because it was all about this. This has been taken care of before we got here. So when we brought that up today, you see the language. It's very strong. It's in the document. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you talk about the military consequences for North Korea if they don't follow through on the commitments that you're talking about?
Well, I don't want to talk.
Yeah,
I know.
Action?
That's a tough thing to talk about because I don't want to be threatening. I don't want to be threatening. They understood that. And you've seen what was perhaps going to happen. And Seoul has 28 million people. We think we have big cities. You look at New York where it has 8 million people. We think it's a big city. Seoul has 28 million people. Think of that. And it's right next to the border. It's right next to the DMZ. It's right there. I mean, if this would have happened, I think, I've heard, 100,000 people. I think you could have lost 20 million people, 30 million people. This is really an honor for me to be doing this because I think, potentially you could have lost, 30, 40, 50 million people. The city of Seoul, one of the biggest cities in the world, is right next to the border.
You once spoke about fire and fury. Is that no longer the case?
Well, at that time we needed perhaps fire and fury because we could not have allowed that kind of capability from the standpoint of the United States. And certainly Japan wasn't going to allow it either. Japan is right next door.
One more thing, Mr. President, could you tell us about the video that you showed before this?
Yeah.
When did you show that to Kim? What was the goal
Today.
there?
Yeah. We had it made up by some, I hope you liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting enough to show. One in English and one in Korean. And we had it made up. I showed it to him today, actually during the meeting, toward the end of the meeting. And I think he loved it. They were given, we didn't have a big screen like you have the luxury of having. We didn't need it because we had it on a cassette and an iPad, and they played it. And about 8 of their representatives were watching it, and I thought they were fascinated by it. I thought it was well done. I showed it to you because that's the future. I mean, that could very well be the future. And the other alternative is just not a very good alternative. It's just not good. But I showed it because I really want him to do something. Now, I don't think I had to show it because I really believe I think he wants to get it done. Yes, go ahead. How's Staten Island Ferry doing, okay? He wrote the best story about me with the Staten Island Ferry, and after that, he's never written a good story.
It's a long time ago, sir.
I don't know what happened. It's a long time ago.
Mr. President, it's been a busy week for you on the international stage. You're leaving this summit here in Singapore having determined that Kim Jong Un is a talented man. You left the G7 summit a few days ago in Canada having determined that Prime Minister Trudeau is weak and dishonest. What do you say to America's allies who worry that you might be jeopardizing our long-term alliances and who worry that you might be treating our historic friends as enemies and our historic enemies as friends?
Well, first of all, I think it's a very fair question. I had a very good meeting with the G7, and I left the meeting, and I'll be honest, we are being taken advantage of by virtually every one of those countries, very, very seriously. Now, the United States, because of bad management at the top, because of presidents that didn't care about trade or didn't understand it or whatever reason, for many years, with China being obviously the most successful at it, but the European Union is second, 151 billion we lost. They were represented at the meeting. And we're being taken advantage of on trade. Canada does have very big advantages over us in terms of trade deficits. We have a big trade deficit with Canada. I was reading where, it's actually a surplus. Not a surplus. It's either 17, but it could actually be 100. You know, they put out a document. I don't know if you saw it. They didn't want me to see it, but we found it. Perhaps they were trying to show the power they have. It's close to $100 billion a year loss with Canada. They don't take our farm products, many of them. They charge what was 270%, but somebody told me the other day that a few months ago they raised it to 295% for dairy products. And it's very unfair to our farmers, and it's very unfair to the people of our country, the workers, the farmers, the companies. And we are not able to trade. They have tremendous barriers up. They have tremendous tariffs. So when I put in a countervailing tariff just to get us up a little bit so the balance isn't so much, it's like this. They said, oh, that's so terrible. I said, what's terrible? We have to catch you a little bit. We have to have a little balance. Even if it's not complete, we have to have a little balance. I say this with many countries. Anyway, we finished the meeting. Really, everybody was happy. And I agreed to sign something. I asked for changes. I demanded changes, and those changes were made. In fact, the picture with Angela Merkel, who I get along with very well, where I'm sitting there like this, that picture was, we're waiting for the document because I wanted to see the final document as changed by the changes that I requested. That was a very friendly, I know it didn't look friendly, and I know it was reported like sort of nasty both ways. I was angry at her. Actually, we were just talking, the whole group, about something unrelated to everything, very friendly, waiting for the document to come back so I could read it before I leave. Anyway, I left it. It was very friendly. When I got onto the plane, I think that Justin probably didn't know that Air Force One has about 20 televisions. And I see the television, and he's giving a news conference about how he will not be pushed around by the United States. And I say, push him around. We just shook hands. It was very friendly. Look, countries cannot continue to take advantage of us on trade. The numbers are out. Over the last couple of years, and over the last many years, but over the last couple of years, this country has lost $800 billion on trade with other countries, the biggest one being China. $800 billion. $151 billion with the European Union. They don't take our agricultural products, barely. They don't take a lot of what we have, and yet they send Mercedes into us. They send BMWs into us by the millions. It's very unfair. And it's very unfair to our workers, and I'm going to straighten it out, and it won't even be tough. Okay? Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead. I would like to involve Congress, yes. And no, I have a good relationship with Justin Trudeau. I really did. Other than he had a news conference that he had because he assumed I was in an airplane and I wasn't watching. He learned that's going to cost a lot of money for the people of Canada. He learned. You can't do that. You can't do that. We left. We had a very good relationship. I've had a good relationship with Justin. I have a good relationship with all. I have a very good relationship with Angela Merkel. But on NATO, we're paying 4.2%. She's paying 1% of a much smaller GDP than we have. We're paying 4.2% on a much larger. We're paying for, I mean, anyone can say from 60 to 90% of NATO. And we're protecting countries of Europe. And then on top of it, they kill us on trade. So you just can't have it that way. It's unfair to our taxpayers and to our people. But no, I have a good relationship with Justin, and I have, I think, a very good relationship with Chairman Kim right now. I really do. I hope it's good, because if it is, we're going to solve a very big problem. I think we've gone a long way to solving it today. Should we keep going for a little while? I don't know. It's up to the legendary Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Should we keep going, Sarah? Okay, we'll go. Well, I don't care. Hey, you know, it just means we get home a little later in the evening, right? Yeah, go ahead. Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. President.
How are you?
I'm good. From the Straits Times of Singapore. Welcome to the country.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed our food.
Beautiful country, I did.
I just wanted to find out, you described this as a process. What is the immediate next step? Is there some ongoing dialogue?
Yes.
With the North
we're getting
Korean?
together next week to go into the details.
And that's our
Secretary
official
Pompeo,
level?
yeah, next week with John Bolton and our entire team to go over the details and to get this stuff done. We want to get it done. He wants to get it done. We're also working very much with South Korea. We're working with Japan. We're working with China to a lesser extent, but we're working with China.
And you're coming back to Singapore?
I would come back gladly. Your Prime Minister was fantastic. We were with him yesterday. He's done a great job. It was very welcoming. It really probably made a difference, actually. It's a great place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
President.
ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. What was it about that first interaction with Chairman Kim this morning that made you decide not to walk away after you said that you would know within the first minute if he was sincere about
I've said that about relationships. I've said that about people. You know, in the first second, now I was generous, I said 5 seconds, but you know, in the first second, in some cases, sometimes that doesn't work out. But sometimes it does. From the beginning, we got along. But there's been a lot of groundwork. This wasn't like we went and we started talking about, as you know, right? We didn't just come in and start talking about these very complex subjects that have been going on for 70 years. We've been discussing this for months. And, you know, once the rhetoric stopped, once they did a great thing. You know, North Korea did a great thing by going to the Olympics, because the Olympics, and President Moon will tell you this, the Olympics was not exactly doing great. People didn't feel like being bombed out of the opening ceremonies. You know, they weren't exactly selling tickets. And as soon as the Chairman Kim, said, let's participate in the Olympics, it sold like wildfire and was a great success as an Olympics. It was a great success. He did a great thing. But since that time, pretty much since that time, because as you know, a delegation came from South Korea who had just met with North Korea. They came to the White House. They told me lots of things, including the fact that they'd be willing to de-nuke. We have one of their great people here today, that they were willing to de-nuke. And once that started, we have been really talking about that from the end of the Olympics, when the whole delegation came to say various things, including denuking.
If I may, a second question. In the document that you signed earlier today, North Korea agreed to commit to denuclearization. To borrow a phrase that you have used to criticize your predecessors and political opponents, how do you ensure that North Korea is not all talk, no action?
Well, I think, can you ensure anything? Can I ensure that you're going to be able to sit down properly when you sit down? I mean, you can't ensure anything. All I can say is they want to make a deal. That's what I do. My whole life has been deals. I've done great at it. And that's what I do. And I know when somebody wants to deal, and I know when somebody doesn't. A lot of politicians don't. That's not their thing. But it is my thing. I mean, again, this really could have been done, I think, easier a long time ago. But I know I just feel very strongly, my instinct, my ability or talent, they want to make a deal. And making a deal is a great thing for the world. It's also a great thing for China, because I can't imagine that China is happy with